If you want to run an effective sales process, you have to begin it the right way. Let's talk about how. Let's talk a bit about how overview presentations are going to help your sales process. Let's start by defining what we mean when we say overview presentation. So what I'm talking about here is a slide-based presentation that's happening early in the deal and that has a really healthy component of discussion as part of this presentation. Basically, this is going to do three major things for you. So first of all, it's going to help you qualify that opportunity, right? You need to determine if that prospect is worth your time and if it's a prospect that should be in your sales pipeline and in your sales forecast. It's also going to help you build interest, right? At the end of the day, you need to motivate the prospect to engage with that sales process and to take the right next steps and to complete that evaluation. And finally, maybe most importantly, it is going to help you set the agenda for all of those future conversations. You need to know what future conversations should be about. You need to know who should be a part of them. And this overview presentation is going to help you settle that and agree that with the prospect. Now, I want to acknowledge that there are plenty of smart people out there who would say that actually in a sales process, your first major call should just be a software demo. In other words, skip the overview presentation. And their basic point is that an overview presentation adds an extra step to your sales process. And there's plenty of prospects out there who might be a little bit impatient and just kind of want to see the product. The flip side is that a slide-based presentation is really good at fostering a high-level discussion so that you can choose what to focus on in the future. It's easy to cover high-level points, and it's hard to go down a rabbit hole because you only have the slides that are in front of you. You can't spend 20 minutes demoing some narrow feature of your product because you're not doing a demo. So how do we kind of think about this? My take is that overview presentations make a lot of sense under a couple of situations. So one is where you have a complex product. And the basic reason for this is that you need to know what features to show someone, right? If you start out with a demo, there's too much product to demo effectively, and you don't know where to focus unless you've done some kind of overview before and agreed on what to focus on. It's also really useful if the value of your product is complex. And this is important because when you are getting into the details of your product, you want to be sure that you are tying those product details to problems that the prospect cares about. If you don't do that, you're just presenting a lot of information that doesn't seem very important. So to kind of cash this out, my general sense is that if you are selling a product that has an average contract value of over $30,000, it is likely that the pros of doing an overview presentation outweigh the cons. Definitely make your own judgment, think about your own sales process, but that 30K benchmark, that is a fair place to start your thought process. So what are we going to be talking about during this overview presentation? Well, the basic idea is that we are going to share our value themes and get the prospect's reaction. So let's define what our value themes are. There's basically three types. So the first is problem themes, right? These show the need for action and they shape the search for a solution. The problem themes lead to your solution themes. They kind of set them up. And your solution themes are going to show how the product is going to help the prospect and also show them how it's different from the status quo and from alternatives. Those solution themes in turn set up the impact themes. And these identify the types of benefit that the prospect will get, and they estimate the magnitude of each of those benefits. So the idea here is that problems lead to solutions, which lead to impacts, right? P.S.I, hence P.S.I selling. And this kind of this sort of mutually supporting set of themes ultimately leads the prospect to choose to make a purchase. Now, most teams should generate 3 problems, 3 solutions, and 3 impacts. That tends to be enough to kind of capture the different aspects of your product without being so many that it becomes confusing. Now, one of the most important tools that you're going to use to communicate the themes is a tool called summary slides. And these, as the name implies, they summarize your themes over the course of 3 slides. You are going to use these to kick off most of your sales conversations, and they'll be absolutely critical during the overview presentation. So basically what we've got is we've got our 3 problem themes. Those go on the problem slide. We've got our 3 solution themes. Those go on the solution slide. And we've got our 3 impact themes. Those go on the impact slide. Right? So we've got 3 slides in our summary slides, and they duplicate that kind of progressive flow. The problem slide sets up the solution slide, which sets up the impact slide. And right there in 3 slides, you've kind of captured the essence of your product's value. So we're going to build our deck to build interest on the part of the prospect. Let's have a look at the different sections of the deck and kind of talk about how they work together. The punchline is that you're going to use this kind of problem to solution to impact flow throughout the course of the deck. So we'll start off with our summary slides. Right? There's 3 slides, one on problems, one on solutions, and one on impacts. And then our first section essentially unpacks that problem slide. Our first section is to present and discuss our problems. We've got 3 slides there, 1 per problem. Our second section will be our solutions section, set up by the problem section. We'll typically have about 6 slides there, usually 2 for each major part of our solution. And then we have our impact section, right, set up by the solution section. Normally, we have about 3 slides there, essentially 1 per impact. And then finally, we'll talk about next steps, typically on 1 slide. So problem, solution, impact sets up a great set of next steps. So the other really important purpose of this deck is to facilitate a productive discussion. And so let's talk about kind of how you're going to manage that conversation as the deck unfolds. So we will take a look at kind of each section one at a time. So you're going to kick off with the summary slides. And when you're on the summary slides, you want to gather as much information as you comfortably can. The sooner in the deck you gather information, the more ability you have to kind of refocus the conversation or kind of use information that you have gained as you're actually presenting one of the sections. But at an absolute minimum, you want to get a sense of which points are really important to the prospect and which points maybe are not important or which points maybe are not applicable, because that's going to help you pivot the conversation as you go forward. Next up, we'll present our problem section. And this is kind of a chance to go 1 layer deeper, right? You're going to share some information about your perspective on these problems and then get their reaction. And frequently that will get you more detail and a little bit more nuance on each of these problems. Next up, we will present the solutions. And here what we're looking to do is to figure out, how do they see each of our solutions fitting in at their company. And then we'll talk about the impacts. We want to find out what would each of these impacts mean in their circumstance. And then finally, we will talk about next steps. And our goal here is to kind of strike a balance between suggesting a really clear next step and also kind of co-creating and collaborating on what next step would make the most sense. That's typically the best way to drive the deal forward. One of the most critical things that we're trying to do here is to qualify our opportunities. And there's a lot of good frameworks for doing this. I like the SPA framework, which I'll share with you now. It's really simple and it's really easy to use. So the first idea is situation. So we want to know whether this is the type of company that we help. And so you'll define what kind of company is your target company, right? Say it's a 1,000-person tech company with an outbound sales team. And then P for problem, right? The company needs to be the type of it needs to have the type of problem that we solve. And so these are essentially the problems that you defined in your themes. And then authority, right? We need to be talking to somebody who has influence over this deal. And so you should define the various personas of people that have the right type of influence and are kind of in the right part of the organization to help you move something forward, and also the level of interest they need to exhibit. So here we're saying, we've got to be talking at least to a sales ops manager. We've got to verify their interest, and specifically, they've got to book a specific next step. Now, some qualification frameworks require things like budget and timeline in order for an opportunity to be qualified. I don't include those here. And the reason I don't include them here is that if you have the right situation, the right problem, and the right authority, you can go and get budget. You can go and persuade them to evaluate along a timeline. Remember, you may be talking to some companies that don't yet know they have a problem or don't yet know they need to do something. So of course they don't have a budget. Of course they don't have a timeline, right? It's your job with a persuasive sales process to get them to commit to those things. Now, the other thing we're trying to do is to set the agenda. And so a really key part of that is to agree on next steps and agree on the right participants for those next steps. So typically, we want to start by kind of affirming and establishing our relationship. Of course, you want to be on friendly terms with the prospect. Don't over-index on relationship building, especially at first, because at the end of the day, it is a business relationship, and you probably don't know each other that well. But it is good to have a good, positive, trust including tone. And then ask. So state a specific ask for a next step, and request specific participants for that next step. I think there's a lot of sales reps out there that are a little bit reluctant to ask for a really specific next step. But being specific is helpful. It gives you something concrete to talk about, and it helps to resolve uncertainty for the prospect. And be specific about the benefits of the next step. So the benefit we're talking about here, it's not so much the benefit of the product exactly as it is the benefit of the next step. Right? Why is it worth their investing the extra bit of time for that next step? And so here are some common types of benefits. So the most obvious is information, right? They will get information that helps them evaluate the product. Another is coordination, right? If they get all of their people together for a meeting and a presentation that you lead, that'll help them all have the chance to kind of get on the same page. Another is influence. And so there might be a situation where you want to get access to an executive on their team, and having that executive participate in a meeting is a way to be sure that that executive is getting the chance to influence the configuration of the product. And so it's important for the VP to show up because the VP needs to influence what we're talking about. And then finally, there's bargaining. Let's say that the prospect asks you to do something that you can do, but that takes substantial effort. You might use that as a bargaining chip to get a productive next step. So let's say, for example, that they ask you to do a free proof of concept. You might say, absolutely happy to do that, but before I can do that, I want to have an executive alignment meeting where your VP talks to my VP, and we all get on the same page, and that will enable me to set up that proof of concept. Now, the other key part of setting the agenda is evolving your themes over the course of the deal. And this is one of the most important things that the overview presentation allows you to do. So in that overview presentation, you have presented the product themes. And these are the themes that are true about your product in general. Now, on that overview call, you have gathered a lot of really productive information, and you need to make the most of that. So when it comes time for the software demo, you're again going to present a set of summary slides, but those are going to present the deal themes, right? These are the themes that are true about this specific prospect, right? Tailored to them. And then on the demo, you're going to get more information. You'll use that to evolve the deal themes again for your scoping calls. And then again, for your proposal calls. And the punchline of this is that over the course of this deal, your themes are going to get more and more tailored and more powerful. And ultimately, they will make an irresistible case for a purchase. So to take things forward, have a look at the rest of our website. There you will find resources on effective discovery, strategic negotiation, hiring, structured demos, sales writing, and action onboarding. And with that, most importantly, as always, happy selling.